Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City, here is Steve Malzberg.
And Al-Qaeda is on the path to defeat.
We've decimated Al-Qaeda's leadership.
Al-Qaeda is on the path to defeat, and bin Laden is dead.
We've decimated Al-Qaeda Central. We have eliminated Osama bin Laden.
Al-Qaeda is much weaker than it was when I came into office.
Osama bin Laden is dead, and General Motors is alive.
The war in Afghanistan is coming to a close. Al-Qaeda is on the path to defeat.
All right, folks, you've heard all those before, I am sure. Joining us now to talk about Al-Qaeda, what's going on in Iraq, and his new New York Times bestseller, that is official, is David Ignatius, Washington Post columnist, award-winning Washington Post columnist, and the author of the brand new one, the director. It's a novel, and we'll tell you all about it in just a second. And David, thank you. Thank you for coming in.
Nice
Appreciate it. Great to see you. All right, before we get to the book, you wrote a column just the other day in the Washington Post saying that Al-Qaeda is not dead, or the return of Al-Qaeda, I think it was actually titled. Tie that into what's going on in Iraq today with this group ISIS. They're on the march. They've taken to Crete, Mosul, and they're closing in on Baghdad. The president today saying all options are on the table. What needs to be done here?
Well, the words that you quoted in those clips that opened this segment should trouble everybody. Assuming that they were spoken in good faith, I'm sure they were. The country did think a year and a half ago during the presidential campaign that Al-Qaeda was all but dead. As the president said, it had been decimated, its core group. And it turns out that the affiliates of Al-Qaeda have morphed and grown and become tougher and more violent. Al-Qaeda now controls a stretch of territory all along the Euphrates Valley, from eastern Syria, just east of Aleppo, all the way to the gates of Baghdad. That's all essentially under Al-Qaeda's control.
And you've covered the Middle East for 25 years.
I've trekked that territory up and back. I've traveled with the Free Syrian Army, smuggled myself into Syria in 2012, and saw some of these Al-Qaeda fighters as they were forming. After that experience, I wrote, we need to help the moderate fighters here, otherwise the extremists are going to take over. It's happened now, and Al-Qaeda is back. They've stormed the major cities of northern Iraq now. They've taken Mosul to Crete. They are at the gates of Baghdad, both north and west. And it's a tragedy when you think of how hard America fought, how much we paid to clean those cities of Al-Qaeda fighters. They were gone. And now, 4 years after our troops left, they're back, and it's a terrible problem because we're going to have to, with our friends, find some way to go after these people before they come after us.
Well, two ways to follow up on that. One, Ralph Peters, Fox News strategic analyst, said that because of this, all that we did in Iraq, all the blood, all the fighting, all the treasure, it was for nothing. You buy that?
No, I hate ever to think that. I try to imagine being the brother or the parent of somebody who was killed
Sentimentally,
there.
Right, I agree. But in reality, if this is allowed to continue...
The reality is that, I mean, let's be honest, when President Bush invaded Iraq, that was a mistake.
Well, we could debate that. I mean, looking back, we could.
But you can't make the point that you're making, that this was all for nothing, and not say that going in. I mean, if it was for nothing, why did we spend $1 trillion, and why did all those young men and women get killed?
Well, he means what Obama Obama's legacy will be is, as you pointed out, from Syria to central Iraq, and now with Baghdad pending, you're going to have a jihadist state, and Peters is saying that's going to be Obama's legacy. Boehner said Obama should have seen this coming. He was asleep at the switch. So we could take it back to Bush and whether or not we should have gone in. I think we went in for the right reasons. I think we stayed too long and tried to do the wrong thing. So, I mean, I'm just saying we could debate that.
We could debate it, then history will debate it. What I agree with you about entirely is that after President Bush's surge in Iraq, after General Petraeus's really brilliant counterinsurgency campaign there, the situation was better. And I think it was handed over to President Obama in a shape that didn't have to end up with Al-Qaeda's black flags flying in Fallujah, Mosul, to Crete, all those cities. So in that sense, I agree. You know, I don't want to roll the clock all the way back to 2003. We don't have to.
And what should we do now, do you believe? The president saying all options are on the table, but really, what are the options? Reportedly, the Iraqi government asked for airstrikes while the fighters were gathering, but now they're dispersed. I mean, now they're all over the place. What do you strike?
Well, you could end up with a nightmare situation like the highway of death that many of us remember in Kuwait. The fighters and others fleeing Mosul are streaming down Highway 1 toward Baghdad. My own feeling is that it would be a mistake for the United States to forget the sectarian polarization that got Iraq into this mess. Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, backed by Iran, I think tragically backed by the United States, not just President Obama, but that was true in the previous administration, has proven to be a terrible leader. And we're now supplying him with weapons. He's asking for Predator drones capabilities to attack this insurgency. And you know, I just worry about us being seen as being allied with Iran's proxy in Iraq. I just don't think that's the right policy for the United States. So somehow there's got to be a broader strategy that works with him and others.
Let me ask you one more, then we'll get to the book. What has been the strategy in the foreign policy and the alignment of the United States? I mean, if you look at Libya and who we supported there, and if you look at Syria, who we're supporting and have supported there, and now and the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, and now here, you know, whatever happens here, if we wind up helping these people, we're helping, you know, we're still helping questionable people. What has happened to the Middle East in the time of Barack Obama has been in charge?
Well, the fabric of the Middle East is ripping apart along sectarian lines. That was happening in Iraq, just as it happened when I began as correspondent in Lebanon. This is not a new phenomenon. The Middle East is becoming modern, and the role that the United States can most effectively play is really complicated. We've all, as a country, watched Iraq and Afghanistan. I think most Americans feel, let's be careful about spending American lives and treasure. But you know, there's got to be a better strategy than the one that this administration has been following the last 2 years. It is getting worse and worse. There's no question about that. And Al-Qaeda, which threatens all of us, is now stronger than it's been at any time, I think, since a decade ago.
Does Hillary bear any responsibility for this?
You know, she was not centrally involved in the decisions that made Iraq worse. It's interesting, in her new memoir, she talks about everything, 635 pages. She doesn't say, it's barely a word about Iraq.
Yeah.
So this is not really something that's on her agenda.
Let's talk about the book. It's not a Snowden scenario, but it is kind of, if you look at it the other way around, it's almost Snowden. A disheveled kid walks into the U.S. Embassy and says, I know what's going on, you're being spied upon, you're being hacked, and it takes off from there. This is a great novel.
Well, I tried to write a novel. I began back in the time when Snowden, you know, was looking for the download key. It hadn't started yet,
right,
at the beginning of 2012. But the issues that Snowden raises, the incredible power of the tools that our government developed for surveillance against others, and the way in which those tools can be used by hackers and turned against the United States, you know, that was just obviously in the air when I began work on this book. So it's a novel about the world that Snowden has revealed for us and how dangerous it is, and tries to imagine what happens if an adversary gets inside what the intelligence community calls the air gap, gets inside the tent of the CIA, gets inside the systems. I mean, everything that an intelligence agency does now is digital. And if you begin to manipulate that and penetrate it and change it, your ability to you know, cause deep problems for the country is huge. So that's what the director in my novel is struggling to deal with. Yeah. And you know, by the end of the book, he's found his way out of it.
And you've also covered the CIA for over 20 years, so you know what you write, and it's very exciting and again, very pertinent to what's going on today. How much do you think Snowden was able to get into that that realm you just described? How deeply?
I actually was able to do some reporting on this last week. I was invited to go meet with the Director of National Intelligence, Jim Clapper. And Clapper said in the interview on the record that while the damage that Snowden did was profound, that it turns out it was somewhat less than the intelligence community at first had thought. Some things that he tried to download, he couldn't. Some things he looked at that they thought he downloaded, and they were terrified about that, he didn't. So, you know, as bad as it was, as dangerous and damaging as it wasn't quite as bad as they thought.
All right, folks. The book, The Director, a novel by David Ignatius, award-winning reporter, columnist, I should say. Also, well, reporter. I mean, you've been, like you said, you've been all over the world, and when you write, you're reporting as well as putting in your views. Great to see you. Thank you so much for coming up. I appreciate it. New York Times bestseller, ladies and gentlemen, as of today, The Director. So make sure you get it and read it and be thrilled along with the rest of us. Okay, folks, we're coming back with Gimme 5. Don't miss it. It's next, right here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Really pleasure. Thank you.